Well, g'day. How yous all going? Ross Thatcher here again, impersonating the Flat Earth Aussie Jesus, as I do. I just thought I'd give it a little bit of a precursor. I do want to finish reading this book. I keep meaning to finish it, called The Secret of the Ages. I was giving it a good run the other day. I was going to do it in 3 parts, but I got to chapter 24 before the camera actually went flat on me because it wasn't plugged in, so the sound quality may not be quite as good with it plugged in. I do apologise for that, but I'm not going to just sit and jump straight into reading it now because there are 1 or 2 little things I'd just like to discuss just quietly and quickly. And it's funny that I guess you'd call it hypocrisy. You know, it, even for my part, they could call it hypocrisy because I went on to what's his name's what's he call himself again? Greater ape. Oh, hang on. Greater sapien. Just kidding. So greater sapien. Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike the guy that much at all. I mean, I dislike his arrogance and the way he doesn't want to entertain a new concept, but a bit like that woofy wanker that can't entertain new concepts, but all they can really do is try and find excuses to confirm basically confirmation bias of their own preconceived beliefs. So that's why I often subscribe to such people, because I like to talk to them occasionally, maybe make some comments in their comment section, try and be respectful where possible. Sometimes people don't give you that opportunity, and so you end up having to be a little bit defensive, you know. Good offence is a good defence. But anyway, I made a comment on Greater Sapiens video the other day because now he's selling merchandise. Now, to me, selling merchandise when your platform is being against something, aren't you also taking advantage of the popularity of this thing that you were trying to argue against? I mean, you're trying to make money off the flat earth. So somebody commented back to me, well, quite a few did actually, quite a few told me to shut the fuck up and all that sort of shit, because this is the sort of mentality we're dealing with a lot of these globe believers. My attitude was, yeah, if I'm asking people for, occasionally do put out a request, I would really appreciate if you can help me out. You know, if it's within your means and you've got a bit of money to put towards, I call it the beer kitty, but in all honesty, none of the money I've ever been given has come to me. I pass it all on, and you know, what I do with it is my business. And I've got a beautiful woman living in the Philippines who I've been missing for the last 7 years, and any little bit that I can send towards her goes much further than it does here in Australia. And I just live frugally. I don't have great requirements. And so, again, to Mark Swarbrick, thank you. You're very generous. To Fight the Flat Earth, Quaig, thank you. You were quite generous as well. You actually sent £20, but you sent it directly to her in the Philippines, because, in all honesty, I'm not going to accept money off anybody who sits there and publicly calls me a fuckwit or publicly says I will crucify you or anything like that. You know, I'm a good, decent person. And I'm good and decent to other people, and I'm quite likeable. I get along with just about everybody. But when you come up with your preconceived biases and start calling me names and say that you will crucify me, then no, I will not ever accept money from you. But if it can go towards feeding a family, a large family of basically third world people, need money for medication and food and their rice and so on, then I will gladly channel it into the right direction. And by doing it so, getting you to send it to her directly, that saved, you know, it saved another transfer fee which would have cost you to send it to me, which would have cost me to send it to her. So I got you to send it directly, and I am grateful for that, you know, because it's going to the right place. And so when I, personally, I live very frugally. I make my own beer. I don't put money towards, if somebody was kind enough to send me £10 or $20 or whatever it is they send, it doesn't actually go towards beer. I can make about 5 cartons of beer for about the same price it would cost me to buy one pre-made carton. And I don't use money that I don't have towards that. But I will put it towards something beneficial, something altruistic, if you will. And I don't make a big deal of it. I don't normally mention it. But then I've got people there accusing me because I've asked in times gone by, if you don't mind, if you would like to contribute to my busking cap, to put a few dollars into ancients@hotmail.com. How is that? First of all, I'm not selling merchandise that is made at a fraction of the price. It's making somebody else profit at the expense of these poor kids in third world countries. I'm not selling that cheap ass bullshit. I'm asking for a voluntary, if you like, contribution, because I put a bit of time and effort sometimes into just having a bit of a song. There's nothing wrong with busking. If I was out in the street, I'd probably make a few bucks, but maybe not. Maybe I'm not. I don't claim to be any great talent. I'm just a bloke having a go. And for those who appreciate seeing somebody having a go, I'm thinking, he could actually, looks like he could use a meal. Maybe if I chucked him $5, he'll be able to put that towards buying something. Unlike these people, obviously well fed, obviously well travelled, obviously got large resources, obviously get plenty of employment because they've sold their souls basically. Well, not me. I'd rather live frugally, live as hard as possible, and be a truther. If the earth isn't flat, I will admit to it, but I can't see it. I've looked, I've searched, I've researched, and you know what? The flat earth is absolute sanity. It destroys this idea of living in this finite spinning ball in a chaotic universe, insignificant, nothing matters because it's all just random chance, that you can do whatever you like and there'll be no consequences apart from what other men may enact upon you during your living years. But if you escape it and die somehow, you're just going to be off scot-free. No, the flat earth is absolute sanity. It is beautiful when you look outside and just go, we're not spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. We're not hurtling through space at 66,600 miles an hour. We're not chasing a sun going 514,000 miles per hour. These numbers are absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely, and they had to invent special theories of relativity to try and explain why not a single iota of any of those speeds could actually be detected. So, as far as I'm concerned, if you can't detect something, but you just believe it, you're insane. So, I'm going to get back to reading this book again shortly, after I have a beer. I will go back though, in case anybody hasn't got the time to listen through the whole thing from the 2 previous readings. It's been a part 1 and part 2 to The Secret of the Ages. So I'll just give a little recap of what the names of the chapters were, because this is coming up quite a lot lately, is all this talk about mud floods and Tartaria. And I don't think the actual name Tartaria came up here, maybe once or twice. But part 1 was basically the case for Atlantis, and it talks about a lot of evidence. The case for Atlantis, the location, the far-flung empire, a discovery greater than Troy, enigma of Tiwanaku, giants and titans, Atlantean tunnel systems, the great catastrophe, Hades or Tartarus, So that's possibly Tartarus, possibly where it is there. So that was all in part 1. Part 2 is the case for a hollow earth, which I also found fascinating. Legends of the inner world, the conditions are favourable. Has the North Pole been reached? The Russians are onto it. Commercial flights over the pole and submarine expeditions under it. More awkward questions. Secret geodetic surveys. That land beyond the pole. The South Pole entrance. What satellite photographs show? The complete case. So I did start, say I was just only going to read part 2 last time I did part 2, but I did get started on part 3 and just thought I'd keep going and see what happened. So part 3 is the case for inner earth people, the green children of wolf pits, Deros and Teros. Are we being put off the track? They knew too much. Humming sounds from underground, the Puma mystery. Why are inner earth people surfacing? Is there a fifth column among us? 1999. A military operation, climax and postscript with 2 appendixes. So I reached chapter 24, which is the one that says humming sounds from underground. So if you're interested in these other parts, the case for inner earth people, green children of wolf pits, Deros and Teros, are we being put off the track, and they knew too much, that's the beginnings of part 3. I suggest watch part 2 to get into that. I personally don't find part 3 as interesting as parts 1 and 2, but for the sake of being thorough, I am going to read the rest of it, so that way we've got a record of the entire book. Secret of the Ages by Brinsley Le Poire Trench, written in 1974. Copyright by Brinsley Le Poire Trench, made and printed in Great Britain by Richard Clay, the Chaucer Press, Limited, Bungay, Suffolk. So I guess I've had enough of my foreword, enough of my big whinge about other people. It's funny actually, I should mention it, because if anybody knows me and my history of flat earth, I'm outspoken, and there's no challenge that I will back down from. I will take on anything or anyone when it comes to flat earth. Live debates, conversations, comments and things. And quite often I was going to this bloke, Wolfie 6020, with his superior attitude and his massive budget, but I'd be debunking him, and I'd be doing so quite politely. Like, of course, a lot of his defenders do just get really aggressive and rude and full of swear words, and so, I fight fire with fire a lot of the time. I will defend myself and talk back. And so, of course, he just calls me some cretin because, hey, I use the Queen's English. That's all legit. And so he ends up blocking me, which he is entitled to do that. That's fine, but isn't that admitting defeat? If when you block somebody, you're like saying, wow, you're too powerful for me. I have the power to block you. That's all you've got, is the power of blocking on the internet, rather than using the power of your intellect and actually coming back with reasonable responses. I picked him apart on this one particular one where he was taking high altitude shots from his plane, 42,000 feet or something, claiming that it's a sunset. And yet the sun wouldn't set. It didn't set, and he must have hated that so much. That's why he's ended up blocking me. Well, anyway, he's responded. He made a comment on Greater Sapiens channel. I thought, this will be interesting. I'll make a bit of a comment here and see if he's actually able to see it. Sure enough, he did. He's able to respond. What did he say? He said, I challenge any flat earther to do what Greater Sapien has done and go on flights all around the world. Like, we all just have thousands and thousands of dollars at our disposal to do that we wouldn't be better spending on far more productive things that would help humanity. We would just do that for the sake of going on a flight around the world. So I said, well, you can walk around the block too, but it doesn't prove the block's a sphere any more than going over thousands and thousands of miles of flat level water proves it's a sphere. So, these people living in delusion, they just can't handle being told. And his response was real clever. Going around the block is about as far as you'll get. I was like, Seriously, Wolfie, that was the best you could come up with. Mate, I embarrass you every chance, every time. And that's why you block me. That's why you can't stand me, because you know I've got a far superior intellect to you or any other person that still believes we live on this magic fantasy spinning ball, and I will crush you. Well, metaphysically, so to speak. I don't crush anybody. I'm quite happy to assist and help you learn in knowledge, which is what I've always done. I always extend the hand of friendship first. I did it with Greater Sapien. I did it with Fight the Flat Earth. Fight the Flat Earth spat in my face and said, no way, I'll ever be friend with a flirth. And then threatened to crucify me on a live debate. I mean, for fuck's sake. This is the mentality of ignorant people who can't just simply agree to disagree. That's all it comes down to. If you don't agree with me, I've got no problem with that, you know. I actually think I disagree with a lot of stuff I say myself sometimes. But then I just put it out there simply for the fact that if you don't test a theory, if you don't put it out there and see how your peers review it and debunk it, then how will you ever know? So when I made this comment that this is what my greatest opinion of what the moon probably is that it came from raw materials mined from Earth. Where's the most obvious place that would come from? Or what looks like the world's biggest strip mine, the Grand Canyon. It seems pretty logical to me that that would be a reasonable source where you'd get it from. And you'd be bioengineering some sort of giant beings as described in this book, which is if you listen to parts 1 and 2, you'll understand that they've got these great underground caverns and places where these giants are being bioengineered and are capable of doing some really, really bad shit. This stuff's been going on for thousands of years, and so for me to suggest that perhaps they mined these materials and made some kind of giant bauble that they've been able to hold aloft like a a wizard's ball or some sort of watchtower, thanks to being hollow and filled with helium or hydrogen, then to me it's my best concept. If I'm wrong, the test of time will prove me wrong. But if you don't test a theory, if you don't put it out there and get people to investigate it and challenge, then how will you ever know? So that's why I said I believe it's an artificial construct. It's made by probably giants who are able to boil up all this silica and whatnot into some sort of glass-like material. As it cooled, that's how you get the bubbles forming on the surface that we call craters. And yeah, this is one thing where I do clash with a lot of flat earthers who believe that the moon is self-illuminating. I mean, you can clearly see in a half-moon phase, when the light is shining on it, you can see the shadows of the craters. I mean, they're obviously really big, quite distant, and the moon is a physical, tangible object. I personally believe it's the only physical, tangible object that remains permanently in our view of space and the sky, but it is there, it is real, and it cannot be denied. It is illuminated by the sun. You hold a ball up in front of it, the shadow on the ball is the exact same shadow as the shadow on the moon. So to say it's not illuminated by the sun, to me that's as crazy as saying we live on a spinning ball because we've got a moon. So I just thought I'd address those few comments. There's a lot of people coming onto Wolfie's comment on Greater Sapien's channel saying, then why don't you take up his challenge? Because I don't need to. I don't need to go anywhere to know what reality is. I live here in a beautiful place. I've got no intentions to travel anywhere except maybe go back to the Philippines a few more times, maybe, if an opportunity arises. But I don't need to travel to Santiago, Chile and measure how long it takes in order to think I live on a spinning ball or flat or whatever. It's just not necessary. It's not a requirement, not something I need to do. If other people like to do that sort of shit, like to spend their life sitting on their ass on a confined space in a flying tube going through the sky, good for you. Enjoy it. Knock yourself out. But don't think you can tell me that that's convincing evidence that we live on a spinning ball in a vacuum of space. It's just never going to happen. It's not something I'm interested in. And if somebody did buy me the ticket, if they were so generous, as I said in my response, I'd just cash it in and I would make sure that somehow it either benefited my fiancée and her family, or preferably was sufficient to be able to get her here finally, after all these years of having no ability to get back on my feet, simply because life is like that. Once you lose your house and you're forced into rent, all your money just goes into paying rent. Yeah, I've lost 2 good businesses over the years through no fault, some fault, but through fate. Let's not say fault. I could probably elaborate more about how I lost my last one, which was very successful, but it's not worth entering into. Let's just say I was cheated by somebody I thought was a friend. Lost everything. My house, my business, the whole works. So now, everything I do goes into paying rent, paying bills, and making home brew in between whatever casual work I can find. So if you'd like to listen in on the rest of part 3 of Secret of the Ages, I will stop this video now and start up a fresh one and start reading. See you there. Now how do we stop?